Sri Krishna Chaitanya Pramanityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha, Paditanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. With regular medication, massages, rest, and the heat of Vrindavan, Prabhupada felt himself recovering. By mid-September, he declared himself 90% fit to return to the United States. He predicted that he would be back there by the end of October. B.R. Sridhar Maharaj, Prabhupada's godbrother, whose ashram was in Navadvip, West Bengal, wrote to invite Prabhupada to spend the month of Kartik with him at the ashram and join him for his Vyasa Puja celebration. Srila Prabhupada liked the idea of going to the holy land of Navadvip, where Lord Caitanya had spent his early years, and seeing his godbrother. He also wanted to visit Delhi again and inquire about printing his books. Swamiji, Achyutananda asked, "When you go to Navadvip, am I supposed to stay here in Vrindavan and study?" "Don't you want to see the birthplace of Lord Caitanya?" Prabhupada asked. Achyutananda did. And Prabhupada, Kirtanananda Swami, and Achyutananda left Vrindavan together and returned to the Chippiwada temple in Delhi. For Prabhupada's two disciples, life at the Chippiwada temple was hard. Delhi was blazing hot and lacked the charm of Vrindavan. There was water for only 2 hours a day, early in the morning, and that only a slow trickle. They would fill 2 clay jugs for Prabhupada's room and several buckets for his bath and their own, and then there would be no more water for the rest of the day. And we think we've got a hard time. A mongoose ran freely through the building. "Do they eat snakes?" Achyutananda asked. "They eat snakes," said Srila Prabhupada. "They eat garbage. They eat anything." Prabhupada, who regarded the heat, the lack of water, and even the mongoose as normal, was undisturbed. Several young Indian musicians in the adjacent room regularly played cinema music on their electric organ, bongo drums, and electric guitars. Oh, Krishna. Rehearsing for a dance. Prabhupada tolerated it. Sri Krishna Pandit praised Prabhupada's work in America and his English translation of Srimad Bhagavatam. As manager of the Chippiwada Radhakrishna Temple and secretary of an active Hinduism society, Sri Krishna Pandit was interested in spreading Hindu Dharma, and therefore he wanted Prabhupada to speak at the nearby Gauri Shankar Temple, one of Delhi's most popular Hindu temples. Prabhupada agreed to go and take with him Achyutananda. Kirtanananda Swami had already left for the West on August 22nd. The Gauri Shankar temple was on Chandi Chowk. After a short walk through some of the busiest, most congested streets of Old Delhi, Prabhupada and Achyutananda removed their shoes at the door and entered the temple. The main deity was Lord Shiva, but there were many others: Ram, Durga, Kali, Radha Krishna, Hanuman. The crowd stood before the elaborate altars, viewing and petitioning the various deities. Achyutananda had learned about demigod worship from Prabhupada at 26 Second Avenue. According to Bhagavad Gita, demigods fulfill only material desires and are therefore worshipped by the less intelligent. Just a sec, sorry. By the less intelligent. A Vaishnav, Prabhupada had said, respects the demigods. In fact, he respects all living beings, even the ant. But he worships only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna or Vishnu. Achyutananda had already seen firsthand that impersonalists were misleading Indians to disavow the personal form of God and accept all methods of worship as equal. Most Indians had no clear understanding of Bhagavad Gita or Krishna. Achyutananda kept this in mind as Prabhupada led him in bowing down before before a few of the demigods' altars. Then Prabhupada brought him before the deity of Radha Krishna. Just see, Prabhupada said, Krishna is playing his flute. As for the demigods, someone is holding bows and arrows, someone is holding clubs, someone is holding weapons, but Radha and Krishna are just dancing, and Krishna is holding a flute. So he is the Supreme Lord. In one large room, a heavy-set man with a great white beard and wearing flower garlands sat on several pillows. Many people stood staring at him. He reminded Achyutananda of Santa Claus. Swamiji, who is that? Achyutananda asked. Some yogi, Prabhupada replied indifferently. The main lecture hall had a large painting of Lord Shiva on the wall and was crowded with people. Women in colored saris and many of the men in bright turbans. Amid such a welter of rituals and worshippers, Achyutananda felt protected by Swamiji. They sat on the dais, and Sri Krishna Pandit introduced his friend Bhaktivedanta Swami to the crowd. Srila Prabhupada spoke in Hindi for about an hour. Walking back to Chippiwada, Achyutananda wondered why Swamiji had gone to speak at a place with such hodgepodge worship. But without his asking, it occurred to him that Swamiji was willing to speak about Krishna anywhere to anyone. Hadn't he come to New York City? And what could be a more hodgepodge place than New York's Lower East Side? Sitting on the veranda outside his room, Prabhupada could see the huge domes of the Jama Mosque in the early evening sky. One evening, as Prabhupada sat softly chanting japa, and as Achyutananda, who had not yet memorized the Gayatri mantra, sat nearby reading it to himself, a Hindu gentleman came and conversed with Prabhupada. Achyutananda soon finished the Gayatri mantra and sat listening to his spiritual master talk in Hindi to the unknown gentleman. Achyutananda could catch only a word here or there, some mention of Ayurvedic medicine, addresses, Indian names, cities. They talked for hours, and Achyutananda wondered who this man was who could speak so long with Swamiji. When the man left, Achyutananda asked Swamiji, "Was he your godbrother?" Prabhupada said, "No." "Is he a Swami?" Prabhupada said, "No." "Is he one of your relatives?" "No." "Well, who was he?" "He's my friend," Prabhupada answered emphatically. Sometimes Prabhupada's visitors would bring donations of cloth or fruits, or even complete cooked meals in metal tiffins. One visitor, a middle-aged woman who had heard Prabhupada speak at the Gauri Shankar temple, came to Prabhupada's office in Chippiwada requesting initiation. Prabhupada spoke with her, agreed, and had Achyutananda prepare a small fire sacrifice. At her initiation, he gave her the name Mukunda Dasi. She came daily to clean Prabhupada's room, and when she saw that his wooden peg sandals were broken, she bought him new ones. Chandrasekhar had known Prabhupada for several years and was supposed to have been his secretary, but he was a drunkard. Prabhupada suspected him of having stolen from his mailbox more than 2,000 rupees during the past 2 years. Prabhupada's Chippiwada address was listed in his magazines and books, and people had been sending money for books and Back to Godhead subscriptions. Even in the past 2 months, Prabhupada's disciples had written that they were enclosing money in their letters, but Prabhupada never found any. One day he caught sight of Chandrasekhar in the building and asked him, "Where is my mailbox key?" "I believe you have it," Chandrasekhar replied, "or maybe Sri Krishna Pandit had it." Chandrasekhar was drunk. "Swamiji," Achyutananda said angrily, "maybe we should make a police case." Prabhupada shook his head, "No." "Well," Achyutananda said, "if he's not punished by the law, then in his next birth Krishna will punish him." "That's true," Prabhupada agreed. Chandrasekhar looked fearfully from Prabhupada to his American disciple. There's only one thing to do," Achyutananda said. "Shall I call the police?" "No," said Prabhupada, "I forgive him." Yet only a few days later, Prabhupada's record player disappeared, and Prabhupada suspected the drunkard, Chandrasekhar. Prabhupada brought Achyutananda with him to his bank, the Bank of Baroda, to exchange some American currency. As they were about to enter the door, the guard refused them entry, thinking they were sadhus come to beg. Prabhupada was angry. He spoke loudly in Hindi to the guard, an old man with a shotgun, a big strap of bullets, and a shabby semi-official uniform. "I have an account here," Prabhupada protested. Finally, the guard allowed them to enter. Prabhupada went straight to the manager and complained. "Do you think," Prabhupada said, "because I'm a sadhu, I'm to be regarded as a beggar?" Prabhupada told the man of his organization in America and his account in the Bank of Baroda. The manager apologized and reprimanded the guard. One day Prabhupada sent Achyutananda to a certain restaurant. "If you want to see varieties of food," Prabhupada said, "tell the man you want 10 rupees of sweets and 10 rupees of salty preparations. That is called mishti and nimaka Is it Nimaka? How do you pronounce it? Nimka. Nimka. And just see the varieties. Achyutananda was sick and couldn't imagine eating a lot of sweets. But he stopped by the restaurant and looked. When he returned to the temple at Chippiwadi, he told Prabhupada that he had seen the food, although he couldn't eat it. Yes, but just see the varieties, Prabhupada concluded. And he explained how Krishna consciousness was personal and full of varieties, not dry. Another American disciple joined Prabhupada, Ramanuja from Haight-Ashbury. He had been initiated just before Swamiji had left San Francisco, and he sported a full black beard. Prabhupada didn't like the beard. Cautiously and indirectly he mentioned it, but Ramanuja's beard stayed. Ramanuja carried a book about Tibetan Buddhism, and he didn't seem fixed in Krishna consciousness philosophy. But here he was, one of the looser, sentimental San Francisco devotees, ready for Indian adventures with Swamiji. Srila Prabhupada visited the wealthy and Delhi industrialist, Mr. Seth Dalmia, to discuss plans for printing some of his books in India. Mr. Dalmia received him well, but gave only vague promises of help. Prabhupada also met with Hitsaran Sharma, Mr. Dalmia's secretary, who worked closely with Hanuman Prasad Poda of the popular religious publishing company Gita Press. Srila Prabhupada was already acquainted with all three gentlemen. Once they had all donated toward his first volume of Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada wanted Gita Press to publish his Gita Upanishad and Srimad Bhagavatam. Hitsaran Sharma showed him an illustrated Gita and Hindi poetry that he had recently published. But my Gita, my Bhagavatam, said Srila Prabhupada, appearing disgusted, is the description of God. It is the description of Krishna. Mr. Sharma said he couldn't see how Gita Press could print Prabhupada's voluminous writings. Nevertheless, Prabhupada still considered privately printing Gita Upanishad with Mr. Sharma as his agent. On October 11th, Prabhupada wrote to Brahmananda, "We must have our books printed. We have wasted much time in the matter of editing and finding out a suitable publisher. When I was alone, there was 3 volumes published, but during the last 2 years, I could not publish a single volume more. It is a great defeat. If I have 1 or 2 sincere souls like you, and if we can make more publications, then our mission will be a great success. I'm prepared to sit down underneath a tree with 1 sincere soul, and in such activity I shall be freed of all duties." Devotees from America were regularly writing Swamiji, anxious to see him again in good health. But he didn't want to leave India, he explained, until he personally saw that the printing of his Gita Upanishad was underway. Printing Gita Upanishad and obtaining approval for permanent residency in the U.S. were the 2 short-term goals he wished to achieve before returning. But he thought often of his return to America. So he wrote to someone, "As you're all feeling my separation, similarly I am also anxious to return as soon as possible. I think I'm fit to go back to your country at present, and as scheduled previously, I'm sure by the end of October I must be fit to return. But before this, there are many things to be done. I'm not yet assured of the permanent visa. The best thing will be that from each center, an invitation should be sent that my presence is urgently required. Presently, I'm very anxious to begin printing here if Macmillan Company does not take up the work. Please therefore let me know yes or no from Macmillan. If he is not serious, then immediately send the manuscripts, finished or not, to the following address. Pandit Hitsaran Sharma Kerav, Dalmia Enterprises, Scindia House, New Delhi. After dispatching, let me know, and I shall do the needful. Indian friends who visited Prabhupada's room listened eagerly as he told them about America, the millions of cars and the superhighways, and thousands of young people rejecting their father's wealth. But Prabhupada's visitors weren't fully able to understand his visit to America. Not that they were too simple to understand, and not just that they had never traveled in the West. Prabhupada's experience in America consisted of intimate spiritual relationships with his disciples. How could an outsider what happened? I changed the page. Oh, okay. How can an outsider understand the dynamics of his temples and his disciples in the West? How could anyone except Prabhupada and his disciples understand these things? He wrote, "My mind is always with you. Practically your country is my home now. India is a foreign country for me. The reason is that my spiritual family is here and my material relationships are in India. Therefore, factually, where my spiritual family exists, there is my home." Srila Prabhupada's vision of a worldwide society of devotees preaching in temples and publishing books, a vision he had had even before he'd gone to America, was now becoming manifest. But it was dependent on him. In his absence, his disciples were sustained only by carrying out his orders and receiving his letters. When Dayananda and Nandarani had gone from the San Francisco temple to start a temple in Los Angeles, it had been Swamiji's instructions that had sustained and guided them. He had said, "Wherever there's a new branch of our Society for Krishna Consciousness, I become very, very happy, and my blessings in heart and soul are with you." Unquote. On receipt of Swamiji's letter, they knew they had done the right thing. No matter that husband and wife sometimes quarreled and that there wasn't enough money, the main thing was that Swamiji was pleased. From Boston, Satswarup wrote that he and the other devotees there were moving from an apartment to a rented storefront near Boston University. The first time Satswarup entered the new storefront, he found on the floor an aerogram from Swamiji, dated October 6th from Delhi. Prabhupada said, "I can understand that you've secured a very nice place in Boston, and there's a very good possibility of pushing our movement amongst the student community there. Our movement is certainly very much appealing to the younger section of your country, and if we're successful in the matter of attracting the student community in your country, certainly this movement will scatter all over the world and fulfill the foretelling of Lord Caitanya, that in every town and village then in every village and every town of the world, the Lord will be famous for his glorious Sankirtan movement. Please try for this with your heart and soul, and your life will be a successful mission. The letter was as good as Swamiji coming personally to open the storefront and begin the preaching. It gave Satsvarup full direction and inspiration, and it was personal. In that same letter, Prabhupada had written, quote, "I'm always aspiring after returning to your care and overload you with typewriting tasks. I hope we shall very soon meet again and help each other in the matter of discharging Krishna conscious engagements. I am now 90% all right, and I think I can return safely. This typewriting work is done by me. For 2 days I'm alone and doing everything itself as experiment. This proves that I'm now well. Please offer my blessings to all the boys and girls there." Okay. Paragraph. In New Mexico, Subal was trying to arrange public speaking engagements for Prabhupada's return, and Prabhupada was encouraging him. "If you think I can be on television by the first week in December, then you can arrange for it, because I must be in your country by the middle of November." Srila Prabhupada wrote to Janardhan in Montreal, answering his philosophical doubts and encouraging him to be patient with his spiritually reluctant wife, and to Roy Ram, who was editing Back to Godhead magazine in New York, he gave another kind of thoughtful assurance, which was, "I'm very happy that since it, Back to Godhead, is entrusted to you, the things are improving. This means that Krishna is giving you more and more facilities. Krishna is such a nice boss that he gives more facilities and improvement to the sincere servant." On October 9th, the day Prabhupada started for Calcutta, he left behind a different kind of letter for Sri Krishna Pandit. Prabhupada had been negotiating with Sri Krishna Pandit to purchase the Chippewater temple for ISKCON, or at least to rent the single room through a formal contract. Prabhupada wanted the room as a Delhi headquarters for printing his books. On the day of his departure, however, Sri Krishna Pandit was unavailable, and Prabhupada left him a short handwritten note, which is as follows: "If you're not settling anything with the room, then I may not come back to Delhi anymore. I'll go to USA directly from Calcutta via the Pacific route, for which Sri Dalmia Seth has already promised for the ticket." That's the end of the chapter. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.